Since 1934, we've engineered perfection, intelligence that you talk to. When the from all of the remote viewers that I have interviewed, and I believe that of the government program, those who speak publicly, I have interviewed all, to astronauts, to everybody that you talk to. When the name Ingo Swan is mentioned, usually it's followed by the greatest natural psychic.
Hey, Phil, good to see you, mate.
Ever born, a natural psychic. He is the great-grandfather, or the father of, depending on how he wants it promote, of remote viewing, the program that ran for 20 years with the U.S. government. We shockingly found out one night on Ted Koppel. That was shocking, wasn't it? And then, of course, many of those members of the military remote viewing program went into the private sector. What can I tell you about Ingo? An awful lot, too much. 55 to 58, enlisted in the U.S. Army, served in Korea, was Secretary and Aide on the staff of...
okay, that makes him pretty old. I doubt he's still alive.
General I.D. White, then Commander-in-Chief of all forces in the Pacific. Up through 1969, employed under permanent contract, get this, at the Secretary of the United Nations, New York, holding several clerical and administrative positions. 1972, 58, 72, undertook research projects of personal interest, particularly the occult, parapsychological fields, astrology, numerology, auras. It goes on and on and on and on. Just every field that we talk about on this program. There are 3 pages of this. His work in parapsychological laboratories. It really goes on and on and on, and I would never in a million years have enough time to tell you about everything Ingo Swan has done. In 1989, he retired from active research and public appearances, so this is fairly rare, what we're going to get to do tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, from Manhattan, I suspect, New York anyway, here's Ingo Swan. Ingo.
Hello.
Hello there. It is such an honor to talk to you.
Well, I never know how to respond to that, but it's an honor to talk to you, too.
I have spoken, of course, with so many of your students. Would that be the way to put it?
Well,
Phil, I thought I'd do this because of that 3 Atlas thing that's going around there. I'm going to play a bit of that later. NASA done a thing on it, a video on it.
Disciples?
No, I don't encourage that at all.
Take me back in your life, Ingo. What I said at the beginning about the other remote viewers I've had on, even astronauts, people who would mention your name, have billed you as, in their opinion, the greatest natural psychic born.
Well, people say things, and I don't think I'm the greatest natural psychic born, but, people are people, and they say things, and then this rumor gets...
That would be Isaiah, the best prophet ever born. That'd be Isaiah.
Going and so forth and so on. I don't even like to be called a psychic to begin with, and earlier on in my career, I tried my best to...
Intuitive?
I've always been interested in perception and expanding perception, so I'd like to be called a perception researcher, but, in common parlance, you have just 1 or 2 categories that you can put people in, and the psychic one fitted.
All right, let me put it this way. The gentlemen who were in the military remote viewing program maintained to the person that virtually almost anybody could be trained to do remote viewing, but they put you in a different category from those people in the sense that you had the greatest natural walk-in ability they ever observed. Is that fair?
Well, perhaps.
Perhaps, huh?
Okay, so he's humble. That's good.
I mean, I've seen other people that have great abilities too. So, well, anyhow, there it is. What can I do about it? I think that I don't really see why I should be singled out for that kind of type of thing because, you know, nobody ever gets anything done by themselves. So you have to work with people, and there have been other great psychics that really impressed me, like the famous Harold Sherman, who's now gone, of course, and even Hella Hammond, who worked with us in California. So maybe I'm one among a few, but I'm certainly, well, anyhow, can we move beyond this?
We can by asking, since I call you, would you be the father or the great-grandfather of remote viewing? Which would be fair?
I think Dr. Harold Putoff deserves that title because without him and his wonderful talents, their remote viewing would never have seen the light of day. It was he who had all of the contacts.
Yeah, Phil, I'm not sure it's real either. You're talking about Atlas, obviously. But it is getting a bit of credibility out there. NASA just released something yesterday. I haven't watched it yet. And there's been a few serious Christian outlets doing it. So it doesn't hurt to keep an eye on it.
And watch.
This guy remote viewing, that's banned in the Bible. Remember in the Bible it says, thou shalt not be observers of time? It's talking about remote viewing, I reckon.
Done that in the military. And it was he who had the patience with people, including me, and also the diplomacy to negotiate all of the egos that get in the way of getting anything done, you know.
Phil, imagine if that is true, that Atlas. The whole world's going to change in like 3 weeks.
And I will say absolutely that without his interest, his long-term interest in it, that this remote viewing would never have seen the light of day.
How did Hal Putoff get on to you?
I'm sorry, I'm choking up on this because I admire Putoff so much, you know. Earlier on, when I was working here in New York with Cleve Baxter, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Of course.
The plant guy.
Yes, of course.
We were talking about the speed that these perceptions take place with. You know, they're really fast most of the time. And so I was saying, you know, who understands this kind of thing? And so he mentioned Dr. Harold Putoff, whom I'd never heard of, who was a physicist interested in tachyon theories. So I eventually wrote him a letter, and he called up right away and was interested because he had made a proposal to find new ways of looking at information transference amongst people and things, and it just turned out that my letter sort of fell into that category. So that's how this began, and he was working at SRI, the Stanford Research Institute.
Stanford.
He eventually invited me out there to talk and what we call play around, and that's how we came together.
Was he connected with the government?
Well, Stanford Research Institute was at that time called the nation's second largest think tank. And the scientists there actually, SRI itself didn't really fund much research, but it invited top-notch researchers in and gave them rooms and typewriters to work with and things like that. But they had to go out and get their own money and their own projects. So Putoff was trying to get people interested in the properties of mind, to develop it beyond static potentials and so forth and so on. And so he's the one who has the contacts in Washington and things, and eventually attracted attention to remote viewing.
So somebody finally came and knocked on the door from the government and said, this is interesting. We'd like to explore the possibilities of some sort of program for intelligence gathering purposes, something like that.
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. People forget now that back then there was a Cold War going on, and these guys that came knocking at the door had much to their embarrassment, found out that the Soviet Union was conducting research in these areas, which took everybody by surprise. You have to remember, back in 1972, that the conventional scientific systems of the world did not believe in this. And so this was a big shock. So they were actually jumping around trying to find somebody who could educate them on these matters.
So in other words, you've got to keep up with the Ivanovs.
Well, you had to find out something about what they were doing.
Sure.
And it just happened that the experiments I'd worked with Dr. Gertrude Schmeidler and Cleve Baxter had made sort of headlines back at that time, and Puthoff had the access to the Washingtonian. So it just all fell together, much to my surprise.
At that point, what were you able to demonstrate for Hal Puthoff? When he studied you, or when you allowed yourself to be studied, what conclusions did they come to?
Good question.
The mandate at that time was to find any ability that could be replicated, I mean reproduced time and again in a laboratory. Mm-hmm. This is the one thing that was missing from historical parapsychology. And in New York,
hey, Di, good to see you.
Gertrude Schmeidler on PK, that's psychokinesis, and with Steve Baxter on PK.
Yeah, Di, I usually don't go on for another 20 minutes, but I had an early night last night, so I was bored.
So when Hal invited me to Stanford, we fiddled around with PK.
How so?
Well, we did things in the laboratory and things, standard things. But he managed to, the problem of PK was, of course, you had to show that the person doing the PK was completely shielded from the target. Mm-hmm. If there was any way that there could be any influencing, underhand trick or anything, then that is something that needed to be considered. So he managed to get the quark detector at Stanford University available.
The what detector?
Well, it was an instrument at that time that was designed to try to detect quarks, which were
quarks.
Some kind of cosmic particle that goes through everything, So the quark detector at Stanford University was buried in cement and aluminum casing in the floor. And so there was no way that you could say that the perpetrator of the PK could have had any contact with the machinery down there.
Of course, the quark detector by its nature, because quarks are still, I think, almost undetectable, or they're still searching for quarks, aren't they?
No, I think they found them.
They think they found them.
Since then.
But nevertheless, this instrument would be highly, highly sensitive, obviously.
Well, I walked into the place and I said, well, where's the detector? I wasn't told anything, And so they looked at me. There were about 9 people there, and they said, you're standing on it.
I don't get it. What were they detecting? Quartz?
And I looked down at this cement floor and everything. So I said, well, gosh. So I drew it. I used my...
No, Di, he comes on too late. I'll do Mike tomorrow. He comes on too late today.
Whatever you visualization and everything. And I said, well, I have to try and locate it down there somehow. So I did my little magic on locating it, and I started drawing it. And when I was in process of drawing it, it stopped dead in its tracks.
It stopped.
Yeah.
It stopped.
Yes, this had been running, and there was a nice sine wave going up and down. It had been running for, I don't know, months and months and months.
So then, if I have this straight, the drawing of it would be what we perceive as remote viewing. The stopping of it would be what is psychokinesis, the ability to affect a
Well, I didn't mean to stop it. It just stopped. It just was somehow if you can say it, my brain waves interacted with this mechanism down there.
Yes.
And it stopped. It went up. It broke its sine wave, and it wandered around for a while, and you could see 9 faces turn pale right around me, And one guy who I think was a doctoral student turned around and started to rush out of the room and bumped into a post and nearly knocked himself out. And so I was sitting there, and I said, well, what happened? What happened? I didn't even know what happened at that time, but then they said, oh, can you do this again? So I don't know what I did in the first place. So anyhow, I continued drawing, and then it did it again. It stopped again, but not as dramatically as the first time. And that impressed everybody right across the nation, because if the mind can do that to a quark detector, hypothetically speaking, it could also do it to a missile or an atomic bomb. And so this immediately, within 1 week,
Wow.
had plane loads of people coming out to talk to him.
Oh my!
That's how it got started.
Was at what point can you say at what point the U.S. government began to get interested with taxpayer money?
At that point.
At that point.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I can well imagine.
And when did he say that was? The 70s?
Were you?
Well, the evidence coming out of the Soviet Union was quite dramatic. The part of the evidence said that they were trying to train people to knock out other people mentally.
Diane, Britain's bad for that. They've arrested 3,000 people might be 6,000 people for saying things on the net. And the one they showed, they were arresting a 10-year-old boy. It was terrible.
At a distance.
We're bringing in, if you're a kid, you can't get on YouTube till you're 16. So we've got a little bit of censorship happening here.
And so this kind of thing gave substance to that, meaning that could be possible, So,
is that possible, Ingo?
I think so at some point, but I would prefer to talk. That would have to be talked about in how people telepathically interact to begin with, which they do. So that's a big, larger picture. But back then, people were only interested in hardware. They weren't interested in mind. But if something happened to the hardware, then they had to take an interest. And later on, it turned out that they could be educated to accept the fact that mind is just as important as the hardware. So it was the hardware, the quark detector thing, that Hal reminded me that we went back and did it another time, about a week after, but with results that weren't as impressive as the first time, and I've completely forgotten about that second trip.
I've talked with remote viewers about the possibility of remote influencing.
Yeah.
They the same thing?
Yeah, it would be.
It would be. Some remote viewers, well, first of all, when you talk to them, they seem hesitant to talk about that subject at all. Some say they don't think it's possible that, for example, you could do a negative thing. For example,
with remote viewing, let's say it works, guys. I believe it works. What if you went back to the crucifixion? Would Jesus see you there? Not physically, but would he know you're there with your mind? I wonder.
Saddam Hussein, that ward on the face of humanity over there, that we could burst a blood vessel in his head, something of that sort. They said, well, you couldn't do anything like that. Could you?
Well, I suspect if the proper people knew how to do it, it would have already been done. And the fact that it hasn't been done means they don't know how to do it. Something like that.
Good answer.
The evidence in laboratory work that people can influence plants and mechanisms is at a small level. I mean, nothing really big. But at a small level, that's incontrovertible, that kind of evidence. So potentially it's possible to be developed.
Well, I have personally experienced random number generators in recent work, and I've done it myself, experimented endlessly with spectacular, unbelievable results.
Yeah.
The software I'm talking about, I imagine.
Sure. There are lots of versions of it.
It's just astounding. It's astounding, and it seems as though, to varying degrees, almost anybody can seem to do it.
Well, I might not go that far, but certainly enough people have demonstrated something along those lines. But the way it works is not understood. So people use the model of the material universe as their working model, and it doesn't quite follow the standard laws of the material universe. It's more of a mental thing, and people just don't know or don't admit that there are laws of the mental universe too, which are somewhat different from the physical universe.
Well, then let me revise that, and let me say I was sent the software. I have the software here. And it, maybe you're familiar with this particular version. It presents you with two pictures, one which is perhaps all white noise on the screen, and the other a picture of a castle or, whatever. And you sit there, and it's clocking you. It's a certain amount of time, and you're trying to make the white noise turn completely into the picture of the castle. And then it will, at the end of that time, assign a percentage of effect that you had during that period.
Wow.
Now, I tried it myself time and time again.
Wow, they can measure that. That's interesting.
And I would consistently score 85, 95% while I was sitting there. Then I would try it and just walk out of the room, walk outside, do something else for a while, come back, inevitably 20, 30% when I'm not there. 80, 90% when I'm there concentrating. Now, that just took the breath away.
Yeah, well, it should. I mean, I don't know what the equipment was measuring, but if you build up, let's say, descriptively, if you build up a mental charge that's eventually becomes big enough to overwhelm what's going on in the physical universe, then what's going on in the physical universe has to change accordingly. So it was probably randomly presenting some kind of white noise type of thing, and the more you interacted with it, the more it became organized, and then if that was what was being measured, then it turned into the picture.
Precisely. The software is
like
called
Switch.
It's called Shape Changer,
Right.
from Pear Inc., which came from...
yes, those guys.
Yes, those guys.
Those wonderful people.
Yes. And it's stunning. I mean, it absolutely is almost scary. At least that was my experience with it. So that's psychokinesis. You are affecting a random
Okay, guys, this is a little slow.
number generator to be not so random.
Well, it's called psychokinesis if the random number generator is actually a physical type of thing. But when it's called telepathy if it's another mind involved. But the principles behind it must be somewhat similar. Behind either one of them must be somewhat similar.
Well, then, in your opinion, is there a way to take this limited ability that can be demonstrated as we just discussed and expand it? Is there a way to nurture it and strengthen it?
Well, there's the old adage that practice makes perfect. In fact, I don't know of any experiments that have gotten this thing together so that it could be considered as a threat thing. It goes on in labs all the time, but when people would be, for instance, assigned to try to burst a blood vessel in somebody's head, then it doesn't quite work that way. There are other things that apparently interfere with it.
What does that suggest about the nature of the universe?
Well, it suggests that we don't know enough about it. And in fact, the nature of the universe, what is known in the conventional sciences as the nature of the universe, is in fact only the physical part of it, not the other part. I mean, life can't really be explained completely by matter, because as it used to be thought, because matter is now known that matter is just a congregated form of energy to begin with. So there's a big field out there called energetics, which people don't really know too much about. Dr. Bill Tiller is one of the people that works with this kind of thing, and of course he finds it very hard to sell his book. Yes, if these abilities, if you want to call them that, get to the point where they get to be strong enough that they could be interpreted as a threat value, then that becomes a different matter entirely.
how did you feel about the development of the specific discipline of remote viewing that the government did?
Well, Puthoff did it. The government didn't do it. Puthoff did it for the government.
But he did it based on studying you to a large degree.
Yes, that's true.
So, but see, that's what I don't understand. You're a natural at this. How did he translate your apparent natural ability to a discipline that could be developed into a program?
Well, this is a long story, but basically...
It's a long radio program.
I have to say something now that probably a lot of people would be irritated with, but we didn't. You see, you have to consider the realities of the clients, in this case, the government agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to consider actually what it is that you think you're working with. And so what Puthoff and I did was decide that whatever psychic perceptions consisted of, that they did consist of perception. So it didn't really matter if the source of it could be called psychic or not. The stuff to work with were the perceptual processes in the human being.
Mm-hmm.
So we converted over to perception studies rather than psychic studies. And there's an enormous, at that time there was an enormous literature about perception, and it was quite well understood scientifically that perception can be expanded by simply working with it. And in fact, when he and I put together our first proposals, we did it from the angle of perception because there were going to be oversight committees and all kinds of people inspecting this, and you had to show why one would be justified for looking into this kind of perception. So we used perceptual studies, and in fact, it turned out several years later that what we were doing was increasing perception, the parameters of perception, and so we just eliminated the word psychic from it, and so forth and so on.
Perception equals intuition?
Perception equals anything that you can perceive. And of course, you don't even need to call it intuition. It's only intuition if it's not based upon...
Come on, get onto the moon bases.
The physical types of things,
Well, is it for the regular person, the regular Joe walking down the street, every now and then, fairly intuitive people will have a very strong feeling about a decision that looms ahead in their life, an intuitive feeling. Is that what
that's a construct of processing information to the point where it becomes perceptible. If that person didn't have high stage perceptual factors working for him, then they wouldn't experience that kind of thing.
As both a logical deduction.
Right. Now, in considering perception, you have to understand that it can be closed down. There are all sorts of processes that can be used to limit a person's perceptual faculties. So if they can be closed down, such as in hypnosis and brainwashing and all kinds of social programming and things like that, these things can be reduced from their functioning. If they can be reduced from their functioning, they can also be expanded. And that was the principles that we went forward with, was perceptual studies.
In other words, how far could you take it?
Yeah.
Apparently far enough to get funding to go for 20 years now.
Yes.
We were all shocked.
You had to produce results, though, really fast. So it wasn't just merely hypothesis. You had to put your results where your mouth was eventually.
Well, you did that, right? Or it was done.
It was done, yes.
It was done. One thing that I have never understood, and to this very day do not, is that the remote viewing, when we saw Dead Couple, it was to announce we had been doing it for 20 years, but guess what? We're not doing it anymore because it doesn't work. Well, 20 years is a hell of a long time to decide something doesn't work.
Oh dear. Actually, when you think of the larger societal picture and the balance of powers and the secrecy that goes on with everything, would you want to have high quality remote viewing admitted as workable?
No.
No. I was told behind the scenes as early as 1973 that even if I was told in secret or in confidentiality, that even if we did succeed at demonstrating something along these lines at Stanford, that eventually it would be obliterated because if something like that becomes good enough, then it's a threat potential against everybody's closely guarded secrets. And so, but at that time during the Cold War, you notice that the program was closed down almost immediately that the Cold War was over with.
That's right. Well, supposedly, yes.
Yes. So this kind of development wasn't needed anymore because the American effort was a response to the Soviet effort. And when the Soviet effort collapsed and went away, then there was no need for it anymore in America. So now a publicity program had to get going saying, yes, we looked at it, but it didn't work. And hoping that the 20-year period wasn't noticed.
Well, I asked every remote viewer the same question, and that is, if remote viewing really works, and they had to say it didn't work, then wouldn't it be logical to conclude that it's still going on, and probably even at a higher level, and almost every remote viewer says no, politics killed it, and I just refuse to believe that. If it really works, then we're still doing it.
Well, if so, it's even when we were working on it.
I'm not signed in to X. I can't see that.
It was a black
Guys, is this a little bit slow?
program,
Right.
And it was on, especially after it got classified, which I encouraged it to be at that time, just to protect the people working with the remote viewing. But if it's going on, then it's a black program, double black, triple black, I don't know.
But
Black, so
one can imagine that easily.
Yeah.
So you don't rule out the possibility that at some level it is still going on.
Oh, I don't rule it out at all, especially with regards to Japan and China.
Yeah.
Americans only respond to things. They very seldom take the initiative unless it involves money and territory.
Yeah.
But interest in this is...
Diane, I knew of him, but I never watched any of his stuff because it's radio. But he's very interesting and he's got a lot of good content. He died in 2018, did he? I think someone took over from him, didn't they?
I mean, a really big time interested in this. It's been going on in Japan and China for some time.
Well, the Chinese are not exactly, other than some trade, our best friends at the moment. So if they're doing it, I would think.
Okay, it's 3 days old.
That.
Well, let's say they're messing around with it, trying to figure out.
They must have rebooted it, Di, for it to be that.
So forth and so on. In my website, I have reviewed a book written
Okay,
by
I'll try again. Look.
somebody who's quite knowledgeable on all
Open,
that.
right.
I don't have it handy here, but it's a report on the kind of research that's been going on in China along these lines since about the early 1980s.
Mm.
And this gives one pause if you're interested in the future. I mean, it's quite obvious that whoever develops these kinds of things to a point where they become functional, really functional, are going to have an advantage over those that don't have that. That's quite clear.
Well, if that's quite clear.
Di, it wants me to sign in. I don't know why.
Well, it's clear to me and a number of other people that the best way to...
Next level dog people give their dogs next level protection with NexGuard Spectra. It's the most complete protection against fleas, ticks, mites, worms, and even heartworm, all in one tasty monthly chew. Next level protection with NexGuard Spectra. Music gets your business moving. Start playing at soundtrack.io.
Here's to the moment. To ever-changing landscape.
Unfortunately, something's gone wrong. I'm sorry.
Make people not be concerned is to say it doesn't work. You know, it's the same thing as like saying UFOs don't exist and ETs aren't real.
That's right.
And so, you know, you can put out this social conditioning out there that simply causes people not to think about it because it's thought to be insignificant, even if it does exist. So if it becomes, the point when it changes from being insignificant to significant is the make-break point between what's going to happen about it.
A mutual acquaintance of ours, John Alexander, you know him?
Oh, yeah.
He called during the break and he said, why don't you ask, I don't want to take credit for his question. He said, Art, why don't you ask Ingo if such a program, in his opinion, could be going on without him?
Oh, yes, absolutely. They don't want me around anymore.
Oh, no?
No. First of all, I'm too stubborn about a lot of things. And second of all, I have ideas of my own, and they don't want to deal with people who have ideas of their own. And I'm getting too old anyway. You know, I'm probably past my prime in all of this.
Well, let me ask you about a few of those things. What do you mean you're stubborn?
Huh?
I said, what do you mean you're stubborn? From their point of view, how so?
Well, you know, if you work in that system, those systems, you know, these are chains of command.
Oh, sure.
And you know, one of the things that we came to grief over was these chains of command sent down that you're supposed to research this and that. And I would say, well, there's no use doing that because it's not going to result in anything, and I refuse to do it. And,
were these bureaucrats?
Oh, they were bureaucrats. They were military people. But you know, there's chains of command everywhere, and people that are putting up money like to get what they think should be done. And but you know, I'm not going to sit around and waste my time just trying to fulfill a mandate like that when it's real to me that it's never going to get anywhere.
So in other words, put simply, a few times you told them just to get screwed.
Well, I left SRI about 5 times.
Five times?
Over this issue. And I said, you know, I'd really rather go back to New York and write a novel and try to earn some money or something. You know? I mean, you know.
Oh, Diane, so now Bill Gates got the solution to climate change. Gee, they're con artists, aren't they?
You know, I'm an artist. I just as well take this time and paint.
Well, I once got fired by a boss 6 times. Yeah. So there you are. Ideas of your own. In other words, avenues of research that you wanted to pursue that they were not interested in. I would take it to mean that. Well,
it had to be one. You see, in the early 70s, the only frames of reference that most people had for these kind of things were drawn from science fiction. I mean, nobody sat around and read boring parapsychology.
Hey, Shawnee. Oh, hi, I was. So, sorry, not Shawnee.
They had these science fiction ideas, and that's what they were thinking they were working with. And I says, well, we have to change that right away. Mm. In fact, I once gave a presentation in a place I don't even think I should mention here, and I said, you can't get anywhere if you're going to think of this in terms of science fiction. You have to think of it in terms of real phenomena. And real phenomena.
Everyone forgets Trump backed the vax, didn't he? Diane, everyone forgets that.
Are acting differently from how these things are presented in science fiction. So,
did you scare the people you worked for?
Sure. I mean, I didn't set about to do that, but you know, for instance, all through 1973, 72 and 73, people would come from Washington to talk with Puthoff, but they wouldn't want to talk with me. They wouldn't even touch with me because they were afraid I could read their minds.
Could you?
Well, sometimes. And I said, what?
I took acid once and I could read all my mates' minds. True, I could read all their minds.
Well,
They got uncomfortable with me because of it.
you know, what can I do about this? So I had to eat lunch alone. You know, I had to go to this little cheapo cafeteria while they sat in the dining room over there without me.
Well, that's going to engender some resentment right there.
Well, I don't care. I mean, to hell with resentment, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there's going to be resentment, you know, everybody's supposed to row the same boat on a project, right?
Sure.
And if they don't do that, I'm going to go watch the grass grow somewhere.
Well, remote viewing, for example, finding a weapon system in a foreign country,
Yeah.
that's one thing. Drawing it, perhaps locating it, but sitting down at lunch or any other venue with somebody and essentially reading their mind, that's...
Oh, I mean, these chains of command are just terrified of telepathy. And, you know, I review that situation in my book, Penetration, which it's just, they're terrified of it. They don't want telepathy. And they're quite content to talk about it in a model of mind-to-mind thing that actually doesn't work. So they're, you know, and it's irrational, you know. I mean, most minds aren't worth reading to begin with.
Well, yeah, but it's not really irrational. In every, excuse me, but science fiction movie I've seen in which telepathy was the subject, inevitably the telepaths were hunted down and killed like dogs.
Yes, human history has a history of doing just that.
Yeah, sure. Once we burned witches, but I really can understand why that would be the reaction of somebody who would be terrified that you would be reading their inner thoughts. I mean, that is a terrifying thing for most people.
It's not just their inner thoughts; it's their secrets.
Their secrets.
Their secrets, you know, and it's just one of the realities out there as to why you see, the whole field of psychoenergetics has never been really researched, because if you permit research into it, if you give funding for it, our program at SRI was called Psychoenergetics, because it was an energetics, studying the energetics of information transfer between things and people, and so forth and so on. And you know, people were so afraid of telepathy, I said to put off, well, we can't use this word anymore, because, I mean, that's like waving a red flag before a bull. So we eliminated the word telepathy and a few other words too. But yes, I mean, if telepathy could be made functional, then...
Oh, he's got something on Area 51. Is that what you were talking about?
Everybody on this planet has a problem. And if it can be made functional between Earthlings and extraterrestrials, then you can, this is, you know, I mean, this is upsetting the entire Earth frame cultures.
Are you a natural telepath?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, yes, you do.
I don't really. I think that, you know, another book that I had to self-publish called Psychic Sexuality. I mean, people pick up sex vibes like mad from each other. And this has never been researched, because it opens the door to the greater realm of psychoenergetics, you know. And it's just, no, I mean, as long as there's secrets and preferred information and power structure that where the power is collected at the top and not distributed very fairly down throughout the rest of it.
Yeah.
These power structures don't want this, because, you know, power's problem has enough problems.
The
Introduce telepathy into it, then it really becomes problematic.
yeah, the whole structure is supported by secrets.
Yeah.
So we couldn't have an end to secrets, at least not and survive it. Secrets, deceit, and lies.
No, we could have secrets, but it simply means that they become accessible and could be used for proprietary access to formulas and places and what people are actually doing. You know, what people are actually doing at the top of these power structures has nothing to do with what
you still have to eat lunch alone a lot now?
Well, what was John Alexander's question again?
Well,
I'll play that after this. I was.
it was, could they really have a double or triple black secret program without you?
Sure. I mean, they had them before me. They can have them after me.
Exactly.
Post Ingo.
So then we should imagine it's certainly possible they have something going, and if they don't, then they're not paying proper, careful attention to national security.
That's right. Absolutely.
Now, why won't any of the other remote viewers say that? I mean, inevitably, almost to the one, they say, oh no, there's no program going on now. Politics killed it. It was an embarrassment. All the rest of it, it's dead. I guarantee you there's nothing going on now. That's what they say. Do they lack imagination?
Well, as you know, I don't like to talk about other people.
Well, this is a general thing.
This is an issue, right?
Well, it is, yes.
People interpret reality from with their personal frames of reference. And if they don't have to.
I'll play that now. I was, because it only goes for 8 minutes, and I'll come back to this. Because that did look interesting, I must admit. What's their plans?
Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area hit you up.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really, really soon.
You can't spend a lot of time on the phone, Gus, so give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military. I'm sorry.
The disasters, is he talking about the earthquakes and weather machines?
The government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting.
Okay, that was something else.
About 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys missed it. You really? In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
Is it the government or?
I don't know.
It has to be something now.
Well, did you hear? Now you tell me because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off.
Yeah, real weirded out.
Like going sort of sounding paranoid,
Yeah.
schizophrenic.
Like crying and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how far into the conversation was it when it went off?
Just a couple,
As soon as you got that interdimensional stuff.
about 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys missed. You really missed a call then, and I've got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
Yeah. Because it was really strange. All of a sudden, I'm hearing Mark Furman when
That's right. Well, the network, of course, went immediately to a backup tape while we tried to figure out what blew up here. So that's what you heard happen. And then we're now on a backup link system to be on the air at all right now. So, well, I'm telling you.
Am I on the air right now?
You're on the air right now. Well, you better be, yes.
And
where are you, by the way?
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, I called the other night, and I wanted to ask two things.
Real quick.
Well, I wanted to say one thing, and I wanted to ask another.
Real quick.
I wanted to ask if you could play that remote viewing one when you were while you go to Egypt.
Yes.
And also, I wanted to know all this stuff about like Area 51, if it's like the government's trying to put it out there like that. So, like some other.
Okay, that was interesting.
Be there with a bowler hat on, a red carnation. And he worked for what we call, or the newspapers call, MI6, which is the British intelligence service, but is technically the secret intelligence service, the SIS. And although he worked for MI6, he was really working for the CIA. And he was a very, very funny man because he was very British, very English, and yet he used American words because so much of his life was spent with the CIA. My grandfather wasn't a field man. What he did was sit in an armchair and plan, or he would go around the world and meet people, and he would talk to these people and arrange deals. That was his job. His daughter became my mum.
Thank you for the link, I was.
And she ended up working for MI5, which is more correctly called the British Security Service. And her job was to, old-fashioned typewriter, to type out documents that related to crashed UFOs that had been brought down all over the globe and had been retrieved by American special teams. The documents came from West Germany. This is before unification. We're talking now, I think she signed the Official Secrets Act in around 1965, 1966. And she died in 1979, and she was in harness, as we say, for all that period. So it started in the mid to late 60s, and the documents would arrive in German from a group of German scientists who, after the Second World War, did not wish to go to America, had escaped the Russians, and wished to stay in what was then West Germany. But because many of them had war crimes and would have to be indicted, they were managed by MI5. In other words, this group of scientists weren't German citizens, although of course they were, but their citizenship was transferred to literally MI5, so that the German courts couldn't prosecute them because they would be honor bound to do so. A very, very interesting arrangement. What would happen is that when a problem emerged that the German scientists in America, this is Operation Paperclip, which I know you guys will be very familiar with, when they were overworked and they couldn't find an answer to something, then these problems would be shifted back to the German scientists based in West Germany.
Wow.
And then
how in the hell could they leave someone behind on one of them cruise things? Wow.
A contact would come to the house that I lived with my mother. My mother was a single parent. And
I was never here. A lot of people go missing on them ocean boats you go on trips on. What do they call them?
Would present this document.
Cruise ships, yeah.
And
a lot of people go missing from the cruise ships.
And then my mother had to sign for it. There was a ribbon on it which had to be cut, and you signed every time you took the document or you transferred it. And then she would be given a spool of tape, and this handler had translated from German to English, and my mother just played the tape and then typed each sentence out in English. And then the typed document in the original, she would be collected by a limousine, taken to what we call a railway station. She would meet a contact, very James Bond. He would be there with a bowler hat on, a red carnation, a pinstripe suit, a briefcase, a copy of the Financial Times, and they would exchange code words. They would sit on a seat on the platform of the station, and then she would put the documents into her copy of the Financial Times, and they would just exchange newspapers, and then he would go. And that's basically what she did in her role. The documents were, I would say, about, you guys do centimeters, don't you, I think? So we're talking about 35 centimeters tall, maybe 20 centimeters wide. The hinge, or the joining, was literally a ribbon, and it was in the German colours. And there would be very, very large wax seals placed on the front with the German eagle. And on the top, in red ink, it would either say secret, top secret, very top secret, or the very special ones weren't in red ink, they were in purple ink. And they would say extreme.
Yeah, Di Gabe's been on a couple of cruises.
Top secret. Now, whenever Mother had an extremely top secret document, there would be a telecommunications van. That was the company that did all the telephones, would be parked 24/7 outside the door. And if anybody came to the house, then two guys would get out of the van and just hang around. So it was quite an intense time. And Mother turned these documents around in about 4 to 5 days. The documents were between 8 pages and 12 pages long. And they always followed the same format. Never said where these UFOs crashed or how they were brought down. The structure of it was, this is the equipment we have. This is what we think. Can you make it work? Can you give us an application for it that we can use on Earth? And then the scientists would do their research, and there would be what I would call really old-fashioned blueprints. So I've never seen them to this day. Big things all folded up, which would be huge, bigger than a big newspaper. And when you held it, you've got blue ink on your hands, and all the lines were white, or there would be separate ones, which was thin as an onion skin, and page after page after page of drawings and diagrams. And to give an example of something which is fairly easy to get across, the scientists were time and again astounded by the size of the nuclear reactors that were coming out of alien spacecraft. They couldn't believe that something so small could produce so much power. These nuclear reactors operated differently from the nuclear reactors then available on Earth, but it was still a nuclear reaction. And the American military wanted portable nuclear reactors that could be airlifted to Europe during the Cold War. So if the Russians were to launch an attack, which is highly unlikely, but if they were to launch an attack, then the American military would have portable nuclear reactors that could be lifted by helicopter. So this was the brief. The German scientists actually came back on this particular document that I remember very well and said, yes, it could be done, but it wouldn't be practical because you would need 2 to 3 hours to set it up, and you'd need 2 to 3 hours to turn it down, by which time the Russian tanks would be all over you. And I can remember that on the typing, my mother had typed out exactly what was required, which was in 5 years' time, we will have a nuclear reactor the size of a VW motor car. And the guy who was handling my mother said, well, the NSA won't know what a VW motor car is, but they know what a mini motor car is. So he just crossed out with his green pen the word VW and wrote mini. And that was interesting because then my mother learned that although she was managed by MI5, the documents that she were producing were actually going jointly to MI5 but also to the National Security Agency of America. So here we have my grandfather working for MI6, but reporting to CIA, and my mother working for MI5, but really working for the National Security Agency of America. So we begin to see, and I begin to understand, and I think it was a great shock to my mother, to begin to understand that actually America was right back in the 60s, the mid-60s and on, was controlling all of the action and the activities of many, many Western countries. It obviously is not a standard family. It's you learn not to talk outside of the family. And in fact, my mother was very loyal to this country. And when she'd signed the Official Secrets Act, she was told that if she was to divulge any information, then she would be found on a railway line dead. And then who was going to look after me, son? So she was always under threat, a very serious and very real threat. And in the end, it got too much for her. She became an alcoholic. She went back to them and said, I can't do this job anymore. I've given you lots of years of loyal service. I want my life back. You promised me I could have my life back, which they had done. They were as good as their word. And within a few days of that, she went back to her old job, and she seemed to be fine. And 2 weeks later, she was dead. I have no doubt that they killed her. I fully understand why they did it. They felt they had no choice. The information in her head was absolutely priceless. And although I don't obviously accept and agree with what they did, I know why they did it. And I decided I would leave the town that we lived in, and I would go to the big city, London, and find a job and try and put all that behind me. And the day before I was due to leave, an envelope came through the door with £2,000 in it. And £2,000 in 1979, 1980 was a heck of a lot of money. And so throughout all my life, I've had security service involvement, watching from the sidelines. Generally,
stay on top of this. You said you'd stay on top of it.
So that is the structure of the family which I grew up in. As a child, very early child, I experienced a number of what I would call entities. Researchers call them mantis in America. We call them mantid in Britain, and I know Mary Rodwell refers to them as manta, but you know what I'm referring to. So mantis or mantid, draconis reptilians. I'm very particular about that because
hey, Vaz, good to see you, mate.
So many people just throw away the word reptilians without realizing there are many different groups. And I'm talking about the draconis reptilians. A few greys. I very rarely see greys. I don't like them. I don't get on with them. I have no respect for them. And as a result of that, I don't think that they interact with me because the situation is not good when they present themselves. And what researchers call shadow beings, quite prevalent, and also what I would call interdimensional elementals, such as jinn. Some shadow beings are in fact jinn, but some shadow beings are creatures in their own right. So
wow, this guy knows a lot, doesn't he?
These have been the comings and goings in my life as long as I can remember. Right, well, what you're looking at there is a drawing that I've done, and it's in two parts. On one side, that's me as a little boy, and the creature is outside. I'm looking through the window, and in the second drawing, it's actually come through the window. No smash of glass, no wobble like breaking water, just absolutely nothing. And it's come through and it's glided, and it stopped about a meter short of me. And in the drawing that I've done there, it's raising its arms up in the air as a greeting, and I'm doing the same. What I haven't shown is that an electrical charge will go from one of its arms to the other. It will then throw that electrical charge to me, which I catch. And this is a DNA lock. It means that no other external forces can interact with me. And it's a code that matches my DNA, so that I will then switch on with this creature. So if another organization or entity were to come to me that didn't have the match, then it couldn't interact with me. This creature, which I believe probably to be a jinn, simply because of the smoke coming off its body. I've seen other shadow beings that don't have the smoke coming off it. These elementals have a very, very high energy output. They live between the third and the fourth dimension. So I refer to them as interdimensional entities. And they often interact in a way with people that other aliens cannot. It's quite a difficult situation because their energy frequencies are such that often when they interact with people, they can do damage.
Thanks, Fast. Back at you, mate.
Unintentionally to the neurons in a person's brain. And I don't mean basically the
Yeah, apparently the mantis ones are really intelligent.
fear. I'm talking about physical damage can occur because they tend to pinpoint. They work with children because they can pinpoint that part of the brain or area that they need to work with. So what this creature was teaching me to do was to be able to be precognizant, to be able to predict some things in the future. And it worked with me for about 3 to 6 months. So this is what a lot of people call a shadow being. I think it's more likely a jinn. And as a little boy, I didn't have any of those terminologies. To me, he was just my smoke man. So, oh, the smoke man is coming. No fear, no worry. I'm very used to dealing with these creatures. I'm very fortunate that they've never harmed me, not once. So I had no reason to be
I wonder why they never harmed him.
fearful of any of these creatures coming near me. There's a guy I've got a lot of respect for. His name is Charles Hall. He's an American, and he refers to creatures called tall whites. They, in my estimation, are real ETs. I think it takes them maybe 15 to 20 years to get here. They have incredibly primitive technology, not dissimilar to Nordic technology. Very, very primitive compared to other races. So they are real ETs because they travel here in real time and they're here and they're very physical. The reptilians that I'm familiar with, the mantids, are extra dimensional. This is obviously my view. If it contradicts with other people, I'm really sorry. I don't wish to start an argument. These creatures come to me through portals. Basically, they can open a portal and they can appear through it. They can open a bigger portal and bring a spaceship through. But generally, they'll open a smaller portal and they'll just literally step through into my space, my reality. Most people talk about being visited at night time. I have to tell you that most of my visits are during the day, and not only when I'm on my own. I've had people with me when these things are visited. Some of the people have seen them, others have been put into a freeze, almost like a frozen time state. Right, this is a Draconis reptilian. I was very lucky by having somebody help me to draw this in America. It took about 3 months. They would draw a bit, email it to me, and I would say, no, you haven't got that right. Send it back. Then
he doesn't know Christ, does he, Vast?
Chase is almost like a forensic reconstruction artist. And looking at it now, I think probably what are spines at the back, which are actually wings, probably are too big. But when you're a child and you see these things, they're quite amazing. You don't see these things. They're generally walking down the street. So when you actually see them, your eye is taken to the huge size of these creatures, and the spines at the back probably had more of an effect on me than they are. So they're probably too big, and I think maybe his waist is a bit too fat as well. He's white skinned. He has red eyes. He's like an albino. He is a royal. No doubt about that whatsoever, because other creatures have to come to him and they have to spread eagle themselves on the floor. He is the king, and he introduced himself to me as, I am your daddy. So I, as a small child, would refer to him as dad, and that's the relationship that we had. When you deal with these creatures, you have to be very much on your guard. You have to be very careful what you think to them, because if you have to choose your thinking words very carefully, because they can be misconstrued. You can upset them. They're very proud creatures, very much into ritual, hugely into ritual. Their whole life is controlled by ritual and ceremony. So every action that you have, every thought word that you send, can have an effect on these creatures. They don't have a sense of humour. And I'm always, in England, we say you have to mind your P's and Q's, which means, it's like going into a room with a maiden aunt. You can't just be yourself. You have to be very prim and proper. And so with Dad, I had to be very, very careful. I was never relaxed around him. And these creatures quite changed my life. Before being inducted, and that is the right word, into that culture, I was just like anybody else in the sense that I was a happy-go-lucky boy, quite open and quite friendly. And then having gone through the ritual ceremony of being taken as one of their people into the race, and seeing what
I believe him. I don't think he's making this up. He's not taking time to think it through. He's just saying his experience. I believe him.
I'd seen, then my whole perspective changed. Well, this is me as a very young boy. On the, think how you're looking at it now. On the left-hand side, this is me before induction into the reptile culture, and on the right-hand side is after. So gone is the smiling, naive, ordinary child, and now we have somebody who is, I'm afraid to say, rather smug, rather superior. I have seen, you think about as a 7-year-old boy or what have you, I've seen these creatures. They're far more powerful than humans, physically, mentally, although not spiritually. Let me be clear on that. But as a young boy, very impressed with their ability to make this happen in just the whole ceremony that goes around these creatures. So this is a change that occurred to me with an induction. When I say an induction, literally being inducted into the family life, the royal court. For those of you who study history and the Byzantine politics, the Eastern Roman Empire and their rogues and their intrigues and their political plots, that exactly describes a royal draconis court, where one is plotting against another, always in the shadows, always very quiet, tremendous power play games going on, but ultimately they are loyal to the reptilian culture. So you've seen a picture, beg your pardon, you've seen a drawing of Dad. That's the best that I can actually get him. You've seen a photograph of me as a young child. What I'd like to do now is to take you through from the 1960s to 1971. So I was not quite 12 years old, and I want to talk to you about very quickly about another experience which was very important. What we're looking at there is an alien spacecraft. It's teardrop shape, and the rounded end is going forward, and the pointy end is going to the back.
Okay, that looks like that thing on the Aztecs hieroglyphs where a man's sitting in it steering it. It looks like that.
It was a weekend. It was just before I was to start my second school, and I was over in the local play park with 4 or 5 of my friends when we saw this very interesting craft. It didn't come right over our heads, but it came very close over our heads. No windows. I would remember the beautiful image of the sunlight reflecting off the silver body of this craft. Absolutely fantastic. The sunlight reflecting from it. No noise, nothing. Very slowly, traveling very slowly indeed. So we watched it for about 15 minutes. And at the time, all I can remember is being taken up into this craft and being faced with what appeared to be a school. And I always referred to it as the school in the air. And later on, when I spoke to Mary Rodwell, and she referred to it as the school in space. And the creature that interacted with me on this alien spacecraft was a mantis. Researchers call this a soul agreement. To me, as a 12-year-old boy, this was just the deal. To me, it was a deal. I didn't know anything about soul agreements. And I think it goes roughly along the lines of, would you like to be like us, to have knowledge and understanding, to see the future, to know the past, to have power and authority? In fact, the creature never got out the word authority. I was so excited about knowing about the past and knowing about the future that I just shouted out. I did shout it, I didn't use my mind. I shouted out, yes. And then his hand just came off my shoulder, took my hand, and then he thought to me, then come with me. So this was what researchers call the soul agreement. This creature has visited me all my life, and he introduced me as mum, not mother, mum. So this is a very interesting situation where I have a Draconis reptilian who says I am to call him dad, and then I have this creature who I am to call mum. Although it's male, it's a male creature, no question of that whatsoever. And they refer to me as their parents. And they've said to me that my soul contains 3 parts. It's 1/3 reptilian, Draconis reptilian, 1/3 mantis, and 1/3 hollow earth human. And that they took a hell of a lot of time to get all the thirds, all the 3 parts, to work as one, to be accepted by the body, for it to accept the body, so that the body doesn't degenerate. You know yourselves, those of you who research, that where a person has a non-earth human soul, unless it is acutely attuned to the body will attempt to reject it, and the body then starts to break down. And so they told me that they went through a heck of a lot of genetic manipulation to ensure that my body would not throw out his soul or vice versa. So this is the creature that I refer to as mum now. When I was a little boy, I'd refer to it as mummy, and it caused some aggravation when I was very little, because I used to call my mother, my human mother, dad, because why would I have 2 mothers? So I had rejected my human mother to start with, because that can't be my mother. And I didn't have a human dad, and the alien dad hadn't yet turned up on the scene. And then as you get older, you realize this is not socially acceptable in human culture. So I had to start hiding stuff and just playing the game that you have to play when you're in a human society. And, even to this day, I'm not sure just how much my human mother really knew, although I rather think she knew much more than she let on. So this was this sort of odd extended family that I had, who would regularly visit me, and either give me messages, or take me away and show me stuff. I want to try and give you some idea of a particular spacecraft that I've been on. What you're looking at here is a group of mantis on the right-hand side as you're looking. These are pilots. These are piloting the craft. And on the left-hand side, you're looking at another group of mantis who are coordinating information. This is a tasked spacecraft who are interacting with chosen humans. And the group on the left are coordinating what are known as human timelines. You're born, you die. You have a timeline that joins between the 2. And so you can be interacted at any point on that timeline. But if you're interacted at the wrong point, it could cause a terrible chain reaction. It could have a very bad negative effect on that individual. So it is all planned out and mapped out. What I like about the drawing is that I've tried to show how the craft bends and turns. There's no sharp corners on this craft. It's all very smooth, very round. And that's important because of the way that the craft is propelled. The energy has to flow round the craft. So if you had a sharp corner, it would sort of shoot off. So that's what I've tried to show there. The control systems of these craft are not like control systems that we would understand from a a modern science program. I'm never really familiar with switches, although I am familiar with touch plates. Most of the controls are operated by the creature's mind. Sometimes they can do it unaided, other times they have to literally be plugged in, so their meshed wires are actually attached to them in some shape or form. And the whole process is one of non-physical, in the sense that there's a computer on board this craft that can interface with you. It'll talk to you if you want, it'll talk back, and it will interpret your commands. So these craft are very, very different. And it almost looks to me as if these things were grown inside it. So, it's not like someone's brought a chair in or a computer console and bolted it down onto the deck. These things almost look as if they're organic, that they were grown with it. And what these creatures have said to me is that they build these craft cell by cell or crystalline structure by crystalline structure. These craft are actually grown in a facility which I've never seen. I don't understand it, but that apparently gives them this tremendous strength, incredible strength to withstand impacts on the Earth. And that's why often when these UFOs crash, the creatures can still be alive. It's hard for us to understand that, but often they can be. This is quite interesting because at the end of that 1971 experience, and I believe I was away for 2 days, but on human time, I was probably away for 7 or 8 minutes. But I honestly think it was 2 days because I had to sleep. A bed had been made ready for me. At the end of the process, and I'm not going to discuss the process now, but there was a number of tests which I had to go through. I was successful and literally either in my physical body or energetically taken out of my body, lifted up and held up above these creatures' heads. And the creatures then emitted what I call a chirruping sound, rather like a lot of canaries in a cage. And why this is interesting is that Mary Rodwell was assisting a young family, and the child, I don't know, was about 7 years old. And he was reporting he'd had interaction with these sort of creatures, and it was freaking out the parents, really was upsetting them. And she said, look, Simon, can I put some of the YouTube videos to them? Can I ask you a few questions and maybe we can support the family together? And what was key was that this boy had also reported that he had been lifted up off the ground by these creatures and heard these chirruping sounds. Now, I don't know how many thousands of miles Australia is from Britain. I've never been to Australia, and I don't know this family. Yet here we have a boy thousands of miles away recounting to his family something that happened to him that directly has happened to me. And this was very helpful to the family because it helped them to move away from the very 3D perspective of, oh, my son is mentally ill or he's having nightmares, to, oh, well, that's interesting, maybe there is some truth in that. And so to move a family away from the 3D aspect allows them then to support their child more fully. So I was, in a very small way, able to assist Mary in her work. And, for me, that was great because I don't want people to go through what I went through, the learning process. If I can save people that learning process time, then that has to be positive. Because not everybody is like me, and I cope with things very, very well. But many people don't cope as well as I do, and it can be very upsetting for them, and I fully understand that. Okay, this is a very secret base. It's called RAF Fylingdales. It is the only 3-phased array radar in the world. It looks around the whole globe. In Britain, there are 3 secret bases. We have GCHQ, which is the equivalent of the NSA's Intelligence Gathering Centre. We have Menwith Hills, which is a listening post. And we have this one, the picture you're looking at, which is a space radar. I was approached by an ex-member of MI5 who said, would you like to have a tour of a secret base? And he said to me, I can get you into any base that you're interested in. And I think, well, I've heard all this before, but I'll play along with it. And he did indeed get me to visit this base. And it was this visit that really changed the media's attitude towards me, because up until this point, the media didn't really know what to do. You know, this is a guy who says he has alien experiences. His grandfather was in MI6. His mother was in MI5. You know, he's obviously a nut, isn't he? And here we go, one of the most secretive bases in the world. I get invited to visit it. So suddenly there was a mad scramble from the media to suddenly interview me. I'll talk a little bit about the visit. I turned up at the gate. We are talking, obviously in Britain, policemen don't carry guns. It's not our culture, but around these bases, they all carry machine guns. And the guy who was expecting me and somebody who was with me said, okay, you know, identity. And the person next to me handed across her identity. And I went to hand him my identity, and he just held his hand up, said, oh, that won't be necessary. So they've been so briefed, they didn't even need to check who I was. I thought that was really, really telling. The woman who was checking me couldn't even look at my face. Her head was just down on the desk all the time, just checking my name off. Didn't laugh, joke, nothing with me. Nearly 3 hours being toured around this base, and it was really interesting. I learned about who really controlled the base, what its functions were. And towards the end of the tour, the guy who was leading it said, you know, I'm sorry, we've overstayed our time, we really need to be going. But he said, anybody here who's in the Boy Scouts, runs a Boy Scout group, I've got these presents that you can give out, like pennants, flags, you know, erasers, stuff like that, which you can fundraise. And I wasn't interested in any of that. But as I looked at the back of the cabinet, there were 4 very beautiful, what looked to me like commemorative coins. And I said to the guy leading it, they're very nice, aren't they? And he said, oh, yes. He said, they're really lovely. He said, we've been here 50 years. He said, the Americans have had a base here for 50 years, and the Americans have allowed us to make these. We present them to generals, prime ministers, presidents. He said, I can't really give them away to you because, you know, their presentation. He said, there's a limited number of 500 in the world, and each one is numbered. And when we present them, we have to take the name of the person and give them to the Americans who's got it. And he said, even so, he said, it's cost us thousands to make, which we've had to pay for, not the Americans. So we always ask for a donation. So I said, well, couldn't you present one to me? Now, there were 2 guys also on the tour beside me, and they both roared with laughter at this suggestion that this officer should present me with one of these medals because I'm not a general or a president. And the laughing soon stopped when he said, I don't see why not. What colour would you like?
Wow.
So I said, I'll have the black one, please. So he gave me the black one. He said, just make a donation, which I did. And I think it's number 48 of the 500 series. And he wrote my name on a piece of paper with all the numbers down, which he said he had to give to the Americans. The 2 guys opposite me both then handed their money to make a donation to get presented. And the guy just closed the box, closed the drawer, ignored them and said, out we go. So I was the only person to be presented with this other lovely commemorative coin. And it is a criminal offence for me to sell it. And I can only pass it down to family. This is another picture of the base. Let's give you an idea of the security that goes around it. It's a 3-phased array, digital radar. Do not think of a radar as you would understand it. Think of a radar as a picture capturing device. This has officially a view between 6,000 to 12,000 miles in space. I know for a fact it goes out to at least 26,000 miles. And it actually captures photographs digitally of whatever is out there and brings them back. Okay, this is the Hadron Collider at CERN, a very nasty device, a device that was designed to, I use the word ascension, I use that word simply because that's what the public understand, a device that was made with the sole intention of affecting 21st of December 2012 to interfere with the planetary alignments and the effect it would have on human DNA and what I would just call loosely the ascension process. This guy, translation, I'm not going to do it justice, it's something like Akhtar. He's a Mayan and he can trace direct lineage back to the Mayan kings. And he had gone on YouTube saying exactly what I was saying, that the CERN Hadron Collider was incredibly dangerous, was designed to prevent humans developing, and he was going to go around to all the sacred sites in South America, the hidden pyramids in the jungle, and place sacred items in order to attempt to counteract the effect of this machine. Now, at the time, I've never met him, I never even knew what he was doing, but I understood that he was the backstop. If this device did work, then it all fell on him, because it was required that he was going to have to do all this work. Okay, this is a screenshot of their operating system, and I decided that it just really wouldn't be a good idea if this device was to operate over the 21st of December. You know, what company wants to work, keep its staff, who many of them are married men and women with children, many of whom live thousands of miles away, working over Christmas? Must be something very important to keep them working over the 21st of December 2012. Probably not a good idea for this machine to be operating. And if you look at the screenshot there, it says the machine failed. It failed, and you've got 2 dates there. It says the 17th of the 12th when the device failed. And interestingly enough, 1 day after the 21st, it's closing down. And so this machine did not operate over the crucial period in question, which meant that Akhtar, the work that he did, he drove, the team of his guys drove around South America, and he would sleep in the van apparently while they were driving, because it was always 24/7 job. He wasn't required, but his work wasn't in vain, because had that device operated, then he would have been the backstop. And this is a really useful system to show how the Earth protects itself. But one person doesn't know what the other person is doing, because if somebody's taken out, it doesn't destroy the whole chain of operation. It doesn't knock out the whole command section. This is Bluffdale. This is the American huge machine, which will take everybody's email, everybody's text, everybody's phone call. It is the biggest, not just snooping center, it is a storage center. Everybody's communication will be stored. And if you look at the front on that stone, it says, if you've nothing to hide, then you've nothing to fear. My view is, if you're innocent, you shouldn't have your information taken anyway. Because what they're actually saying is, it doesn't matter whether you're innocent or guilty. We're just going to take all your information from you. And at a later date, I guess, if they don't like you, they can do something with that. It's called the Utah Data Center. And I thought that it would be very important to send what I call the shadow government, a very important message that actually this is an infringement of human rights. And don't really think that it's quite a good thing. This just shows you how it works. Any piece of information, including every time you use your credit card, when you use your credit card, this machine will actually log what time it is, what you're spending, and it'll be logged against you. Your phone calls, your text, our whole profile is being built up on every individual. This is the official ribbon cutting ceremony, which had to be cancelled. Just before the official opening, there was a very unforeseen, what the Americans call a power outage. In England, we call it a power cut. And they had to, as they call it, uninvite all their guests. They literally lost all their power, and they just couldn't have the official ribbon cutting ceremony. And I don't like the terminology. It's like loyal Americans, loyal people, for the good of our nation. It's basically saying that, you know, if you're loyal, you're with us. If you're not loyal, you're against us. And this divisiveness is not good. So they got a message here that, you know what, you can build $1 trillion installation and it can still lose all its power, even though you've got nuclear reactor backups. Okay, 22.
Thus, if you look up cryptid chemtrails, you see all the cryptid monsters that are out there. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of footage of them.
This is in Tally Streets. For those of you who are researchers, you'll know all about this. But those of you who are not researchers, in New York, they're going to replace 450,000 light columns, light poles, street lights. And the idea is to roll this out and they're selling it to local government by saying it's really good, this new street light, because it's intelligent, hence the word intelligent streets. So if the sun is rising from the east and it's making, half the street light and the other half is in shadow, well, these will talk to themselves and they'll turn off one load of lights and just keep the street lights on in the dark part, and they're very economical. What they're not really pushing is that each street light column will have a camera. Each street light column will have a microphone and a loudspeaker. So as you're walking down the street, you will be filmed by each street light pole. Your conversation will be recorded, and if they wish to talk to you, there will be a loudspeaker. They can then give
I wonder if they're the street poles that have purple light.
you an instruction. And this is part of the move towards a global state system. It's called Intelligent Street. And this is what's been done through the back door. But of course, mainstream media doesn't want to touch it because they're warned off it. Okay, this is the new Pope. And it was about 6:30 in the morning. I got a phone call from the BBC, World Service, asking me to make a live comment on radio, because the Pope had just announced that he was prepared to baptize aliens. You see, since I was invited into the space radar base, the media has completely changed its attitude towards me. So when the Pope made this announcement he was going to baptize aliens, then this is me. They'll come to me and ask for this comment. And the BBC couldn't understand.
I knew you'd know what lights I was talking about, guys. Yeah, the purple ones. Is that about the jab, is it?
How an established figure like the Pope, head of the Catholic Church in the Vatican, could actually say he would baptize an alien. And, but aliens don't exist, do they, according to the government? Yet here we have this man saying that if they turned up on his doorstep, he would baptize them. So we're getting mixed messages.
And he also said, or be baptized by them. They left that bit out.
Soft disclosure. My view is that humans have been on this planet a very, very long time. I do not accept that we owe our creation to aliens. I do not accept that. What I do believe is that humankind has been genetically altered and had its powers taken away from it so that it could never challenge those that meddled in its creation. You're looking at pictures here. I should tell you that I was an auxiliary lecturer at the British Natural History Museum for a number of years. It was an unpaid post. It was expenses, and my job was to meet school children from all over the world and take them around the museum and to show.
Yeah, Diane, that's how come I remembered them, the purple street lights.
The exhibits and to run workshops with them. They needed somebody who could communicate really well with young people, and I applied for that, and I got that, and I did that for a number of years. And this is what you're looking at here. Charles Darwin came up with the evolution of species, that the strongest, the fittest would survive. And he had another man with him, a guy called Wallace. And Wallace said that he absolutely agreed with Darwin that animals certainly could develop and change, but that in Wallace's view, there was no way that humans could go from an ape to modern man in the time span. It just wasn't possible. And Charles Darwin's father was a 33-degree Mason who actually paid for this trip. That's not widely known. And Wallace's view did not chime in very well with what Darwin family wanted to get out. So Wallace was actually frozen out. And if you go to the Natural History Museum in London, you will see a wonderfully big
I knew that
marble statue of Charles Darwin. And it says, origin of species, survival of the fittest, the great man. And about 2 meters to the right is a painting of Wallace. And in a very, very small little metal plaque, it says co-author of the origin of species. So they actually had to be truthful and say that actually Wallace and Owen wrote the origin of species, but Wallace's view was completely pushed away because it did not fit the Illuminati agenda of the survival of the fittest, which is a very reptilian and a very reptilian movement. Natural History Museum, hence my Homo rudolfensis on the left-hand side was around, around the 2 million mark, 2 million to 1.8 million mark. If you look on the right-hand side, you've got Homo ergaster, same period. Look at the difference.
Problem with that is, where did the first monkey come from? Where did he come from?
In the facial features. The guy on the right, if you dressed him in a suit and gave him a hat, I guess he could pass. He could go down the street and buy a coffee and get away with it. How is it possible in the space of just a very short period of time that the facial features of one Homo sapien group can change radically to something that we will recognize? And this is just not possible with ordinary evolution process. I passionately believe that there has been external influence from more than one group designed to speed up the process of humanity on this planet. Now, whether that's for good or ill, I'm not going to go into that debate now, but just suffice to say that it is my absolute belief from what I have been told by both security services and from alien interaction, that the human race was an experiment and that the humans have lost all of their abilities or most of their abilities. And you know what humans are trying to do now is to get those abilities back. And
We've got the Holy Ghost. We don't need extra abilities.
as they move towards getting their abilities back, that is why a device like the CERN collider was built, because the human race is advancing itself and it's concerning people that they're going to lose control of basically the populations of the world. In Britain, we don't really go in for military badges or military patches. I guess in Australia, you might do a little bit more. Certainly in America, they're absolutely mad keen on it. Every uniform has a cloth badge sewn onto it. These are genuine, real badges. They're not made up ones. And you've seen there a picture of the Earth and 3 circles around it. And in Latin, it says never before, never again. And we see it time and time again.
Wow.
Military patches, a dragon or a snake, which is the reptilian culture coming through. You'd have to ask yourself, why would you want snakes to be so prevalent on badges? And here you see the very famous I think it's the 509 bomb group. The 509 bomb group was the bomb group that shifted all the Roswell wreckage and took it around to the different bases. And this is their official patch. These guys who fly these aircraft have these official patches. So what Earth is a grey alien doing if aliens don't exist? And there's a knife and a fork. And in Latin it says taste like chicken. I don't know whether it means that grey aliens taste like chicken or whether it means humans taste like chicken. But that's what it says, taste like chicken. And you have the B-2 stealth aircraft, which is what that bomber group now fly, but originally flew the stuff out of Roswell, and hence that's why they have a grey alien on their official badge. And people say there's no evidence out. This is the last one. What you're looking at there is a Templar, a Knights Templar, and the Earth covered in a grid. This is not the natural grid of energy. This is a prison planet that we live in, and this is a grid system that's energetically put around the planet. And when you die, your soul wants to go back to source. That's what we want to do.
Looks like Elon Musk's satellites.
And it's captured, and then it's hit with a very strong electromagnetic force, which wipes your memory. You then reincarnate back on this planet. Many people now are gaining bits of memory of past lives, where this device isn't clearing it because the energy change for the good is so strong. And interestingly, that the label there says defenders of the domain. This Earth is called the domain. It is part of the domain of an alien group who wishes to see the status quo stay the same. I don't share that view. I think it's time for humanity to come to terms with actually what is happening to it and what it can actually be. Humans are one of the most wonderful creations in the multiverse. They just don't know it. And as long as humans don't know it, they won't have the power to change the reality. We are all multi-dimensional creatures. And if we just knew it, we have the ability to create our own reality. So if you have 1,000 people in a room and they all think one way, they can actually change what will happen. And that's why governments don't like peaceful demonstrations. That's why governments love violence. Because when you're throwing petrol bombs and bricks and bottles, you're only changing for the worst. But if you had 500,000 people or 250,000 people sitting down quietly in the center of a city, wanting peace, that reality can be brought about. So as long as humans live in a situation where they don't understand or know the truth, then these people can control them.
What is the number of different alien civilizations that are visiting us, in your opinion?
I don't have an opinion. I can only tell you the groups that I've seen, excuse me, and the groups that have been mentioned to me. The number of 26 is the number of alien groupings that I am aware of. There are a lot more. There are many, many more, but I can only say to you that I have seen or positively know of 26 different groupings or different individual representing groupings that I'm aware of, but there will be many others visiting other people.
Do you detect a type of hierarchy amongst those groupings?
In one of my experiences, I remember holding the hand of a mantid and we're going along, and there was a grey in the way, and the mantid sent a mental message which equated to get out of the way. As we went further down, there was a Nordic, and the mantid sent a message which was move aside quickly. So you can see immediately a structure there where the mantid is very dismissive of the grey and a bit more respectful of the Nordic, but certainly telling the Nordic just move yourself out of the way. The whole of that I'm aware of is that the reptilians are very, very much the masters of the earth, in their opinion. The mantids are playing a very interesting game on the side. And you can have all the other groupings who are wanting a piece of the pie, either for or against humanity. So mantids have for a very, very long time interacted with humans on an individual level, mainly, while reptilians will interact individually, but also corporately. So reptilians will, either through a grey intermediary or themselves, they will deal directly with military as well as individuals, but mantids tend to deal with individuals.
You refer to yourself as 1/3 hollow earth human. What do you define as a hollow earth human, and if so, how different to what we would say ordinary humans are hollow earth humans?
If you are an earth human, and people just use the word human, again, that's just inaccurate. So you have to be specific. An earth human is somebody who has been mind controlled either through corporate media, through family, growing up in a family, whether it's satanic influence, whatever it might be. And so an earth human generally does not have its awareness, and it's not connecting with its soul. So the neurals in your brain of an earth human generally not connecting and talking to the soul. Therefore, that individual isn't at its full capacity. It's not there. If you are a human from another perspective, and you have not had that negative interaction, therefore you can switch on and activate some of the gifts which all humans should be able to have, but have been dumbed down and taken away. So the earth human, the 1/3 earth human element in me is not corruptible. It cannot be mind controlled, it cannot be conditioned, and it rejects such conditioning. In terms of longevity, it's about the body. It's not about the soul. The reason that the human body deteriorates in roughly 100 years is because it's genetically timed to do that. That's deliberate, because if you had a human being who lasted 500 years, imagine if you had somebody like me running around this earth for 500 years. I'd be able to convince quite a lot of people in 500 years that their government is corrupt. So you can't afford to have humans lasting that long. That's why you can't afford, from their point of view, humans to have the ability to remember what they did last lifetime. Take Albert Einstein. Supposing Albert Einstein died at 500 years old and then came back and remembered everything that he'd done for 500 years. Within the space of 3 Albert Einsteins, you'd be a completely different race. So the human race has been completely manipulated and controlled. So
I reckon that's crap, guys.
Earth humans like that, for instance, the Palladians or the Syrians or the Lyran race, who have fought wars with the Draconis reptilians, have to some extent maintained their independence. And so the Hollow Earth humans have maintained their independence.
How hollow is the Earth? What extent?
Good
What
question.
extent of population and technology? Okay. I mean, what's your take on Hollow Earth theory?
Yeah, I use that term. I don't want you to imagine. I'm trying to think what you think. It's not like a tennis ball all hollowed out and you've just got a thin shell. It's not like that at all. Imagine more like a Swiss cheese. Can you imagine a solid structure with lots of tunnels going through it into caverns? The reptilian group, one of the reptilian groups that lives inside the Earth, does create an energetic world for itself. It's not a hollow as we would understand it in the physical sense. There are caverns there, but it creates by moving interdimensionally a larger space. So you've got 2 points. You've got the very physical nature of tunnels, caverns, and small, I call them small towns. I wouldn't call them cities, small towns of communities in a very advanced way. And then you have in a separate location, Draconis reptilians who create through an energetic, which it absorbs a huge amount of energy. That requires an awful lot of energy. And these creatures require that to maintain their hiding, to maintain their secrecy in an energetic way.
There's been discussion on the internet and various places, including the Monroe Institute, about humans having a very developed ability to emote, to broadcast feelings of high intensity, obviously during sacrifices, if the person is aware. The idea that humans exude through their thoughts and feelings an energy source of desire to other civilizations, hold that in your mind. And also in the same vein, have you had any experience or understanding of this whole thing? And also in that same answer, the power of unconditional love, I've been told over and over again by other experiences in a negative situation, they have somehow intuited that if they broadcast or projected pure unconditional love at their captor alien, that their whole situation has been reversed, they've been released, or the captors have reacted with horror. Have you any elaboration on that whole topic?
The reptilian Draconis race had an awful lot to do with setting up some of the great empires. You'll immediately think of the Aztecs and the Mayans, but let's talk about the ancient Roman Empire. Why do you think the Colosseum was built? Why are these great arenas built where thousands of people can basically watch other people being hacked to death? This produces an emotional and energetic release, which is energy. It's just like sticking a battery into a torch. I'm going to say something which might be quite interesting for you. It's not just humans that have been genetically altered. Ask yourselves, why does a domestic cat have an eye like a reptile? You go and ask a vet and you'll get the most awful answer that just makes absolutely no sense at all. I asked a vet, why does a cat have an eye like a snake? And he said to me, because it helps it see in the dark, which is absolute BS, because a cat doesn't hunt in the dark. It hunts first thing in the morning and first thing at night. An owl hunts at night, but an owl has an eye like us. People often say cats are cruel, because if you see a cat with a mouse, it doesn't kill it straight away. It doesn't kill it to eat it. It plays with it. And then when it's half tortured it and half killed it, it eats it. What's happening is that when a mammal is tortured, it releases a chemical, like a pheromone, it releases a chemical. To a cat, that's a drug. That's why a cat won't kill a mouse straight away. It will torture it so that it can feed off the pheromones of chemicals, not energy, it's a chemical release. Reptilians, who altered cats, in my opinion, have the same thing. So that when a mammal is being tortured, it exudes a chemical release. And then these entities will come around and do things. They'll either physically feed on it in terms of eat its flesh, or it will inhale, in a sense, the pheromones, or it will live on the fear, the energy. If somebody is having a negative encounter, absolutely. If you
Okay, I'll finish off with Tony.
In my empire, I build for efficiency.
Is there evidence that Jesus was known 4,502 or 4,524 years ago? Today is the day, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We have, of course, a certain comet coming closest to the sun today. We're going to get into that. We also have an interview on Joe Rogan yesterday with the famous scientist talking about this the most and making it infamous. Avi Loeb will get into that as well. And there is a lot of interesting stuff going on right now. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And you have here a number of clips from Joe Rogan. And you also even have Vance talking about aliens, UFOs, and is it spiritual in origin? And we also have a lot of other things in this realm that we're going to get into in this video, even the giants and Nephilim. Paul Stobbs, I've actually interviewed this guy on my channel before, and I was recently on his channel, I think a couple months ago. We're going to get into all that and much more in this video. Even, is there evidence that Jesus was known 4,502 or 4,524 years ago? Ancient Chinese records talking about him. Yes, we'll get into that as well. And I've actually talked about this many, many years ago, but I talked about this before. There's this religion, most ancient religion in China called Shangdi. And of course, what's interesting is you look at these ancient Chinese records, they talk about, they literally have quotes that are the exact same as you see in Genesis. And the books that are written in this ancient Chinese documents, these books are older than Genesis, thousands of years older, and they say the exact same phraseology. Literally, you can tell it's obviously the same from the same source as Genesis got its source. Because remember, Genesis was written by Moses. He compiled a bunch of more ancient books, like maybe the Book of Noah or whatever, when he created it. And you got actually confirmation from another. Well, it's not exactly another religion. It's called Shangdi. And I believe it's actually the same religion as the ancient Israelites had, except for it was before the ancient Israelites. It was actually the time, before, around the time after the Tower of Babel, I'm guessing. But we'll get into that and actually a ton of other stuff. But I wanted to get into mainly what's going on with this 3-eye atlas. Here we got Stefan Burns here talking about it. Today is the day it gets closest to the sun. Solar maximum with the sun. Weakest magnetic field.
Bas, I'm going to do Mike from around the world tomorrow. I've got to spend some time with Gabe.
On Earth currently, some are saying it's going to change the frequency of our sky. And some say our brain is synced with that. Could this cause some are saying it's going to influence us? I don't know. Check this out. Of course, he's talking about just simply the comet itself, but he gets into some interesting stuff. We're going to play also Avi Loeb as well from Joe Rogan.
Today is the critical day. The perihelion of interstellar object 3-eye atlas is closest approach to the sun. And, well, there's a few possibilities as to what could occur now and going forward into the future. It could continue along its trajectory just like normal. Effectively, okay,
I'll make a prediction. I predict the sun's going to rise where you are. I just gave you a prediction from the future.
Some sort of space rock or...
Yeah, I've asked Mike from around the world. He goes for like an hour and 15 minutes. And, yeah, I just haven't got time to do it. I'll do it tomorrow.
Interstellar comet of unusual properties. B, it could perform an Oberth maneuver, which means it could change its trajectory using that gravitational slingshot of the sun. Puts on a really big reverse thrust sequence it could redirect to Earth. It would have to do a pretty severe reverse thrust to do that.
No, I should mention that Avi Loeb here has said that he doesn't believe there's any indication that it has thrust of any sort so far. But, we don't know. Of course, we also have all these other weird attributes. We saw light Fibonacci sequence. Light pulses come from it, which is clearly not usual. We had also a certain, there was something about sound, a strange sound effects that were coming from it as well. So we're talking about that. Also, it being off track somewhat from its actual supposed original trajectory, and the unusual speed and all that stuff. But what if it is really something more than just a comet? Then we got this here, my friends. NASA activates Earth Defense Group over concerns of Manhattan-sized comet with possible alien technology. We got two major publications putting this out. We also have it over on New York here. Them putting out as well. NASA Group launches defense probe to protect Earth from Manhattan-sized comets. They are a NASA-coordinated group has reportedly begun efforts to observe Comet 3I Atlas after it had seen emitting a never-before-seen alloy and exhibiting other strange behaviors. The cosmic anomaly, the Manhattan-sized interstellar object that potentially
Good night, Di.
says alien tech has been added to a list of threats by the International Asteroid Warning Network, a worldwide coalition of space experts who collaborate to detect and monitor potentially
So they're starting to say this Atlas has got legs, if you know what I mean. There's something to it.
hazardous asteroids and near-Earth objects to assess their potential impacts on our planet, or to the planet. So they're actually monitoring this, and if it really was nothing, as some of these astronomers are saying, you wouldn't have a group like this being formed to look into it and monitor it to make sure everything is okay. Let's hear more of what Stefan has to say. Check this out.
Based off of our orbital alignments, but it's possible, or it could do a very slight over-Earth maneuver, if it is of alien or technological origin, to redirect to Jupiter and its moon system, which is what I explored in this video here. Definitely give that a watch.
So it actually makes sense what he's saying, because when you saw the trajectory, it's almost exactly on line for Jupiter. And it wouldn't take very much to get it right on track to land on Jupiter or do something like that. And also, it comes back around in December towards Earth. So it could be something near the time of December when we see it come near Earth and something strange happens during that. I don't know. It's something interesting to ponder. Now, you have here also, Avi Loeb, check this out.
To the United Nations and to the International Astronomical Union to develop a strategy for monitoring interstellar objects that come from outside the solar system, like 3I Atlas, that show anomalies that could potentially be technological in origin.
Every hotel needs a vibe.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
Soundtrack. Music streaming for business.
Some decisions just work out perfectly, like your new Daikin AC, convenient controls and quiet. Unlike the decision to let the kids play inside. Make a smart choice with Daikin.
Bloody ads.
Every time I shop it.
Turn down the noise, turn up the calm. Metagenics, the science that creates balance.
Ready to win, bit?
So that's interesting. And actually, I have more clips to play here. And there's an ad that popped up, obviously. So he's talking about, and I can't play a lot of Joe Rogan's clips anyways, because I don't want to get some sort of copyright on there. But because I'm going to play a couple other clips of his. But you have here also on X, Avi Loeb talking about a situation with the New York Times where he had actually, let me just play a little bit of this and you'll see what I'm getting at. I'll try to explain it out.
It was not a meteor, it was a truck.
What?
And I wrote to the reporter and I said, how irresponsible are you?
So?
You didn't even ask me. The data that led us to this place was based on the fireball, on the light that was detected by U.S. government satellites. And the U.S. Space Command.
So he's talking about New York Times actually misreporting something. Where he actually is talking about he had actual data from the satellites of this meteor and where it landed. And they had just miswrote it.
Yeah, he's been all over the net, hasn't he, Vas? Everlob, whatever his name is.
They didn't write it down correctly. They actually kind of changed the story. And he goes on to say, like, if you guys can't get these scientific topics right in your publications, how can we trust you with anything else? Which is a good, fair question. And so this is partially why maybe he's sort of an outsider in the scientific community, even though he's from Harvard, regarding these 3i Atlas and other things, is because he feels like there's a lot of sort of has a sort of a Borg mind, I guess. I think all I could think of was like Star Trek and Borg. You know what I mean? Like they all just say the same thing. They don't question the status quo. And you would think if they are scientists, they're supposed to be questioning things. They're supposed to be coming up with hypotheses and testing things, not just simply saying all the exact same thing all the time, almost like it's a dogma rather than actual science. And so what he was saying in the interview is pretty interesting. Some of the stuff I heard. You have here, obviously, a lot of people are talking about this. And as I just mentioned, a lot of these experts are saying, of course, this is not alien. Of course, you guys are just making a big thing out of nothing. And I mean, honestly, this is not, I would not say that's a fair assessment, because we do have a number of anomalies and they're just dismissing them as if this is a very unique comet. It's extremely fast, extremely large, coming from a very strange angle outside our solar system. This is not usual. This is not a usual comet. It has very different, it has nickel. It has large amounts of nickel and metals in it, which is not usual for comets. It has less water than usual. Its tail's different. There's so many things that are different about this. It gives off these weird Fibonacci sequence light pulses in some respects. It's also from the same area to 0.6% accuracy, where we had a weird signal from 1977 that we heard. It's just so weird that they're just dismissing this completely. And he goes into this and talks about more of these anomalies on Joe Rogan.
Also a very negative polarization of the light. And also 2 weeks ago, I realized the arrival direction of 3A Atlas was within 9 degrees of the WOW signal that was detected in 1977, which was an enigmatic, powerful radio signal.
I mean, this is amazing. You know, he said it's within 0.6% aligning with the arrival direction. So this is interesting what he was saying with regards to the sun, approaching the sun, and a lot of the other things he was saying there. And so, I mean, to me, you don't just dismiss this as nothing. I think for people to just dismiss this as nothing seems like they're trying to just stay with this Borg mind and, oh, it's just a comet. And when you have all these weird attributes given to it or shown from it, you have here also, let's see here, Stephen Burns talking about more of this. Check this out.
Perihelion. So you see that it is at closest approach to the sun, just about 1.36 astronomical units. The distance from the Earth to the sun is 1 astronomical unit. You can see that Earth and 3A Atlas are actually pretty far apart. And if it was to perform any sort of Oberth maneuver that causes it to go like this, meaning it would have to put on a reverse thrust to slow down, so then gravity would swing it around more like this, it would have to do a pretty significant reverse thrust sequence to do that. If you go forward in time, we do see that the Earth is moving
100%. It's going so fast
forward in its orbit, but still it would have to be a pretty significant sequence.
So and it doesn't matter because it's going to come around in December anyways. And it looks like it's going straight towards Jupiter at this point. But the question is, how is it affecting with the sun being so close to the sun? Is there some weird thing going on with regards to that? That's a question a lot of people should be asking as well. There's a lot of other people talking about, I mean, you had Avi Loeb also talking about a breakaway civilization potentially living, of course, in the ocean. We've talked about this about back in December last year, January this year. We had all these New Jersey drones. A lot of people were showing videos, posting videos of these bizarre objects, drones, orbs, UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, flying at unusual speeds. I showed numerous videos myself. A lot of these people are saying they saw them coming out of the ocean. And I mean, there's numerous videos of them coming out of the ocean. I've shown a couple of them. Could there be some sort of breakaway civilization there? I did a video recently about this. Matter of fact, I did it over. I even have it right here on my main website, GR Videos. I got two websites actually, and I talk about it in that video right there. If you want to go check it out, completely free. All the videos in the free section are free, and there's hundreds in the free section are free. Some of them are videos I made 10 years ago predicting what you see today. Literally, I was predicting Neuralink like a decade ago. I predicted it. I was like, they're going to put a chip, of course, in your head. You're going to be able to surf the internet with it. The first guy, I think, was it like a couple days ago? First guy got it in his head, was able to do some stuff on the internet. So literally what I said 10 years ago came true. I've said it. I got all these videos. I thought my videos from the past weren't that relevant. And then I went and checked them out. I'm like, bro, I literally predicted everything that's happening today. So go check it out. Also, I got a membership section. It's free for the first month. It's right here. You just go plans and pricing. $5.95 a month, cheaper than Starbucks at this point. I mean, Starbucks is more expensive than my website per month. And you get the first month free. So you get free. I mean, it's like getting a free coffee. And you also got the free section. Go check it out. And also go check out my Lost Ways book and the food supply, all that stuff. Just in case some crazy stuff happens, you might want to have that book right there. How to Live Without Electricity, $37, get the version. Or if you need food supply because something crazy happens, you want to definitely have that. And just in case, 25-year shelf life, 4 months for $6.97. You can't even get 1 month worth of food from Walmart for $6.
Okay, guys. Good night.
$6.97. Go check it out. Link is in the description for all that stuff. So what else do we got going on? I mean, just to give you an idea, like this is insane. You got AI, 170,000 jobs lost in 2025. And they say it's because of economic shifts. I mean, yeah, economic shifts. That's why you have United Parcel Service, Amazon, Intel, Nestle, Ford, all these companies cutting 170,000 jobs total, cumulative. And it says it's being driven by AI integration, post-COVID overstaffing. What are you talking about? Like that's 5 years ago. I don't think you still got overstaffing from that. I mean, that's just an excuse. Inflation, that's a legitimate reason, I think.